So, good afternoon, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the course. We are going to get acquainted with rhetoric finally, and this is going to be the topic of your presentations. You will have to be searching for or detecting media rhetorical mistakes, we call fallacies, in any kind of media stance that you happen to choose. And today I'm going to be teaching you these kind of argumentative mistakes that many people tend to use. We all use them, by the way, in our everyday lives. It's just that it's getting more serious when somebody uses it in the media and somebody uses it with interest behind it or with some purpose. So today we will talk a little bit about rhetoric in general. Then afterwards we will kind of go into argumentation in general, and then we will glide into fallacies, so argumentation mistakes practically. And we will continue this one after the autumn break as well, and the intensive week 2. 2 weeks later we will still have, I think, two lessons left. I will be teaching you fallacies, we will be practicing those fallacies as well, and then in the presentations you will have to kind of prove that you have managed to learn them and know them and understand them really well, because I think it's one of the most important things to know why somebody says something, how they mean it, what they want to have as an effect or impact on you, what they want to reach with it. So practically this is what we are going to start learning about, which I hope you are interested in, because it's the basis of all political speeches, media campaigns, arguments, advertisements, anything that you can think of that go down in the media. So, ladies and gents, rhetoric. Now, many times rhetoric is going to be portrayed as a lady. I got you one of the images that she rarely is portrayed as. And rhetoric is one of the allegoric ladies of the 7 liberal arts, Septem Artes Liberalis. With her crown on her head, as you can tell, she's resting her feet on books. You know, she's like a queen, rhetoric is. And she's also like the lady of wisdom, because she's got her feet on the books. And she's sensitive about her age, practically, as every lady would be, but she's 2,500 years old. And she's trying to stay fresh, and young, even though I think that takes a bunch of anti-wrinkle creams to stay fresh and clean after 2,500 years, yeah. But rhetoric still remains pretty much the explanatory principle of public scenes, and it never loses, or it kept on losing its relevance at some points. However, in the period of the media, it just gained back all the importance and all the relevance that possibly could happen. She knows the serums of juvenility, wisdom and mystery, so a good rhetor and a good orator practically is always going to be wise and is always going to be mysterious a little bit. And rhetoric really likes to talk about herself, so rhetoric is going to be an art or proficiency or theory or practice, and the cornerstone of eloquence practically, which is going to be somewhat exhibitionist or open about sharing information about themselves and showing themselves and, expressing an opinion. Rhetoric is going to be a very, very, very fighting and a very tough kind of a lady, or, well, if we kind of leave the metaphor behind, it's a very tough kind of a discipline. And it's going to be something is going to be rhetorical because it contains a thesis and it contains an argumentation, and it will be pro or contra something, and it will want to have results. This is what rhetoric is about, that you state something and you try to prove it, and you try to disprove the other person. So practically this is why it's going to be an all-in kind of a subject. You wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I believe that, let's say, like, I'm not sure, giving birth at home, it's like, yeah, it's good, but it's also bad, and it's got advantages and disadvantages. No. If you're giving a rhetorical speech, you're either pro or con, and you've got to give your best proofs. So practically rhetoric is this peekaboo kind of subject. It's like you've got to tell it and you've got to go ahead and do it. Rhetoric's diversity is also reflected in its historical traditions as well. Now, as far as the traditions go, it goes back all the way to the 5th century before Christ, to Syracuse, and then it went all the way to Athens. So we might have heard that rhetoric itself was like a very much ancient kind of a subject, and it goes back to the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. And now it's very important that with the ancient Greeks, the history of rhetoric is going to be much different from the ancient Romans. So the Greek democracy will have rhetoric as its establisher, and it was very, very important. It became the assistant of the assemblies and courts, rhetoric, in the Greek society, and it was for a reason that whenever we did see this in the period of communism here in Hungary as well, for example, that when the people, as in tyranny, and tyrant, when they got into power, and they often did it, what the communists did in Hungary, for example, they often took the lands of the people, of the civilians, and then, for example, Drakon, Solon, Peisistratos, Cleisthenes, the big ones in Greece, and then they oftentimes took the lands of the people, of the civilians, and gave it to their friends or supporters or any kind of people of the tyrants. It often happened. Now, the 5th century before Christ, ladies and gents, the institution of the court already existed. But they didn't have a lawyer and they didn't have an attorney, so they only had a judge and the court system itself, which is already quite forward-thinking and quite smart, to be honest with you. But those people who were deprived by the tyrant of their lands, by the time the tyrant died or got sent away or got killed, these people, these civilians, went to court and they started using the very great tactics of rhetoric, trying to get their lands back. And they were reasoning that it used to belong to me and my family for centuries and stuff like that. And then just because the tyrant took it from me, I would like to get it back. Of course, the other person that the tyrant gave it to, they never wanted to give it back. This is how the history of rhetoric started in the cradle of democracy, ancient Greece. And this is how the whole rhetoric of the Greek society started to become quite logical, rational, seeking the truth, trying to find a solution, how to kind of take the lands from the new landowners and give it back to the old landowners, and to know who is right, who is not. And practically, as soon as the democratization replaced the reign of the tyrant or the despots, these people needed to go to court and needed very good skills of argumentation in order to kind of reason why they wanted and had the right to get their lands back. Of course, we understand that they needed it. So Greek rhetoric is inherently including strategic arguments, logical setups, very much rational elements. As opposed to the Roman rhetoric, where Cicero, one of the greatest Roman orators and highly cited people, he's going to be applying for the consul title. And he was an outsider in the political sphere, and that's how the whole Roman rhetoric started, ladies and gents. Already we're starting off with a political campaign. I'm hoping that you notice it, that a political campaign will always be a different sort of a rhetoric. Roman rhetoric started in here. Cicero wanted to be running for the consul title against Catilina, and he started to kind of get supporters. He wanted to kind of convince the audience that he was the right person. He was an outsider in the political sphere, but he wanted to win this political battle against Catilina, who had already been the consul before and who had already kind of held this position. And so for that reason, Roman rhetoric was a lot less argumentative, rather narrative. It was rather about the person itself, just as a modern political campaign, I would say. It's like the whole thing is on about the relationship between the speaker and his audience. And Cicero was all about his very fine looks as well, and his very high quality family background and his intellectual self. And it was all about him, and not much of it. Of course, the political campaign did kind of contain some promises for the future. But this kind of a rhetoric was much different from the very rational, logical Greek rhetoric. It was all about, the beauty and the identity and the social status of the speaker, in this case, Cicero himself. Okay, so practically rhetoric is, kind of the tool of rational, cultural, intelligent argumentation, self-expression through self-representation. Of course, we do believe that a mixture of the Greek and the Roman kind of rhetoric would be a very good one, where there is a very wonderful speaker as well as a really wonderful case and logical kind of argumentation behind it. However, rhetoric is still, in modern rhetoric, I would say that it's all about Roman rhetoric, but that's just my personal opinion. I think it's all about the speaker and their status and their beauty and their everything as well. However, rhetoric at the beginning also analyzed and still analyzes speeches and tries to find the most convincing arguments. It's still the task of rhetoric today to notice which speech is going to be the most convincing and why, and what is the reason for it. Rhetoric is built upon three main aspects, and I'm very much sure that we did learn it in high school, and I'm not sure if you did it as well, but it does consist of logos, ethos, and pathos. I'm not sure if you've heard it. Logos, you can find the etymological kind of root logic in it, of course, and that's going to be the logical setup of the argumentation. It will refer to the speech itself, practically. Ethos, it does contain the word ethics behind it. This will refer to the speaker, practically. The personality of the speaker, the members of the argument, how they try to accept their speech and how the speaker is wonderful. In some cases, they say that beauty, outer beauty, is also important. So ethos is going to be all about the personality and looks of the speaker itself. Roman rhetoric was very much ethos-based. Both logical and ethical, ethos-based argumentations, they will serve the goal to create pathos. Pathos is going to be the emotions of the audience. How many emotions and what sort of emotions you can evoke in your audience, and how the parties who are debating which one can be or which one will be affecting more the audience themselves. Now, if I asked you, ladies and gents, which person in your immediate surrounding will be arguing the most irrationally, I'm not sure whom you would say. Sometimes we say a parent, because so many times, oftentimes, our mums will say that, like, oh, bring a jumper with you, and you ask why, and like, oh, because I'm your mum and because I said so. I do remember a bunch of these kind of comments as well. I'm not sure whom you would say would be the most irrational person in their argumentations, but sometimes we just feel that some people are off with their argumentation. Something is not right in here, the way they present things, right? Now, why do we argue? First of all, we love arguments. I'm not sure if you've noticed it, but in reality, first of all, we want to convince other people, to accept our position. That's very important. We want to get through to someone. We want to sell something to someone. Sorry, don't sell someone. Sell something to someone. We want to convince someone to go to the country together, to do this or that. And that's going to be very much our need in life. Everybody is arguing. Everybody does that. To defend your position, even if others cannot be convinced to agree. Okay. If some people don't want to take your argument, you can still fight with a good argumentation to be accepted at least, or to defend your own position, even if you cannot convince other people. That's okay, that happens. Or to question or refute a position you believe to be misguided, untrue, or dangerous, without necessarily offering an alternative. So you can just question somebody's argumentations like, oh, is it really that way? You don't need to recommend a new structure, you just need to kind of ask somebody like, do you really mean this? Because you shouldn't. That's very important. 3 disciplines deal with argumentation in general, and that's going to be rhetorics, logics, and dialectics. I don't think we should linger on much about this topic now. We will deal with rhetorics, which is going to be the performance of the speaker. The other ones are going to either focus on the form of the argument, such as logic, if something is going to be in a form like a valid argumentation or not. Dialectics, which is like the way of information exchange, but we will focus on rhetoric because we want to see the performance of the speaker and we want to know how, why, and where and who said what. We can analyze argumentations from different points of views once again. So not only disciplines deal with argumentations from different points of views, but also Also certain disciplines as well, or not disciplines, but practically like branches will deal with it. Psychological ones, like what sort of psychological effects happened during the argumentation, what motivated the different parties to get into the argument. Social psychological one, like what is the role of argumentation within social relationships. Sociological ones as well, what sort of interests do the parties have? Is there a hierarchical kind of order in the argumentations? And then last but not least, rhetoric that we are focusing on. It will deal with linguistic actions and the arguing parties themselves. What is an argument? Now, ladies and gents, the problem very often is that we tend to handle argumentation as in a verbal fist fight. So when you say that I've had an argument with someone, in modern language, it doesn't mean what we mean in here. Okay, so I've had an argument, which means that I've had a fight or a quarrel. That's not good. Argumentation, it means like you're reasoning. Originally, it means that. So it means that it's like there is a verbal conflict situation, there are viewpoints, different positions, and you are trying to rationally give your best arguments. So it's not like killing each other and saying like, the F-Bowman, the other one F-Bowman, and that's it, and you go home. No. Argumentation is not about that. That's a fist fight. That's quarrel. Argumentation is like a verbal conflict situation where people are trying to give their best reasons and try and find a common solution and like a commonly accepted position. That's what an argument is. Now, why is it a problem in order to give a perfect argumentation? We love our thoughts and we found them out, we're very proud of them, and we don't want any other person to be better than us. So if somebody else gives a talk or a speech or something, we will think that like, oh, this is contradicting my view and my view is my baby, so I'm not going to let them, contradict me. Rationality and emotions are often present, and as soon as emotions are present, that's going to be problematic, and a very rational argumentation is not possible when you're emotionally involved. And in any case, we will be emotionally involved because it's pretty much, in my opinion, pretty much impossible not to be. There is not a single topic we wouldn't be super indifferent about. Even if we are, then it's just going to be difficult to argue wholeheartedly, or when you can, then it's still like you like your thoughts, and as soon as you've got some sort of an opinion, you will be fighting for it because you don't want the other person to be, giving a best argumentation, not you. Let's take a look at the different arguments, and of course, the main one that is going to be interesting for us is going to be the rational debate. We will just quickly move on these because these are different types. You will need these for the exam, but the main focus is going to be the rational debate. Let's take a look. Oh, my voice is horrible today. I'm so sorry about it. It's really breaking. So, quarrel. Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you those. I got just deeply involved in my voice. Quarrel, court trial, trial or negotiation, and rational debate. So these are the 4 different types of argumentation. And what I would like to show you today is that different types of argumentations, but still rational debate is going to be the best one and the one we should be striving for. And the fallacies will be breaking that one, because the fallacies will be not needed there, but they always occur, and they will kind of manipulate a rational debate into a quarrel or into a court trial or into something else. Quarrel. The basic conflict is going to be emotional stress. So when we get into a quarrel, which is going to be a verbal fist fight practically, we often want to release stress or overcome each other. We just want to kind of punch the other person down into the ground. It often contains aggressive personal attacks, intensifying emotions, like all kinds of passions, threats as well, swear words as well. A bunch of times it's just going to be highly inappropriate. And although apparently arguments are also there, there is very little room for rationality. It's not a very rational kind of an argumentation or kind of type. It's often happening, with a quarrel as well. Sometimes your mum comes home and she's really nervous because of work or because of her boss or someone. And she comes home and she will start shouting at you like, why didn't you do the washing up? And why is this? Why is that? It looks a little bit rational because you could have done the washing up, but it's obvious that she's not angry with you. she's angry with somebody else, but she's taking it out on you, and she wants to release stress on you or towards you, which is, like, it often happens. Sometimes we just start an argument like this, a quarrel, because we are bored, or because we just find the other person irritating, or we just want to, there is an inner tension between me and them, or within the self, and you just want to take it out on another person. That's a quarrel as well, very often happening. Court trial is the next type, ladies and gents. Now, with the court trial, the basic conflict is going to be rivalry between two parties, and the dispute is decided by a third party. Third party is expected to be neutral, of course, and that's when, like, two people are arguing for the attention, for the goodwill, for the benevolence, for the support of the third party. The parties don't argue in order to convince each other, but the third one, they want to win, the neutral party as well. And this happens very often in our private lives as well. For example, two siblings arguing in order to win the mother's kind of support. Or oftentimes it happens that, like, two siblings argue to win over the third sibling as well. But in TV and in the media, this is what it's all about, right? So there are two politicians arguing with each other in a political talk show. They don't argue to convince each other. They don't even care about each other. What they argue about is your attention and mine. It's like they argue about a third party's, like the voters' attention and benevolence and support and votes and stuff like that. And so the main attempt is to convince the third party and not anybody else. The court trial, it got this name because of the juridistic kind of system that, like, two parties are arguing for the judge's opinion and judge's judgment. Sorry, yeah, that wasn't very lucky. Okay, so trial or negotiation. Now in here, the basic conflict is going to be differences of interest. The goal of the debate is not to reveal the truth. They don't want to know the truth, it's not that, but to come to an agreement or a compromise. In here, the main device or the main tool of this argumentation is going to be bargaining. There is a bargaining process. I'm not sure if you ever managed to bargain. That's a very, very difficult task, to be fair with you. I've never managed myself. And so it's like the first party initiates something, and then you initiate something, and then you're trying to negotiate into a model, into like this schematic model to propose some sort of a solution to be good for everyone. So this kind of an argumentation is all about interests. It's like, I want to sell my bicycle for 20,000 forints, and you want to buy it for 5,000 forints. Let's just bring it down. It's like a verbal ping pong, you just try to get down to a mutually acceptable kind of a position. This is going to be trial or negotiation. I very much prefer the negotiation name or title. Rational debate, ladies and gents. The basic conflict in here is going to be the different points of views, different opinions. So you've got a rational debate. You're trying to be as rational as possible. The aim is to achieve a high quality, true knowledge. Okay, let's say that that you've got like a medical conference where you are trying to get to develop the cure for COVID-19, let's say. In here, it's high quality. You're trying to seek the truth. You're trying to seek the solution. The argument is also going to be successful if they cannot convince each other. So like, let's say two doctors have got different opinions. It's not a problem because they are also gaining knowledge and other benefits and maybe some further information or further insight. And that's going to be good. Tools are going to be commonly accepted standards of norms and evidences, strong arguments, good reasons. This is very much it. Now, whatever happens, this rational debate, I think, as it is, that like, oh, we are all in a medical conference and we are all doctors, and it's the most important thing is to seek for the truth and find it and to be super rational, and even if my argument is worse than yours, it's okay because we got closer to the right one. I don't think, because we are humans, I don't think it's very often happening. I think very many people would be like insisting on a stupid opinion as well, just because they initiated it. That's my personal opinion and experience, but I think rational debates are very often broken by some things that we call fallacies as well, and that's what we're going to learn about. I put here a table for you. You can see the type of the argument: quarrel, court, trial, rational, debate, and trial. I'm not sure why it was changed in this way. And so that you can actually learn better for the exam. And starting conflict tools goal as well is going to be very important. This, you don't have to be kind of focusing on it on this video, but when you're learning the PPTs, I highly recommend checking it out. Now, very often, ladies and gents, a rational debate is going to be manipulated into other sort of arguments, or anything else can be manipulated into some other things. These four types of like quarrel, court trial, negotiation, and rational debates, they are often happening in a mixed form. They not never, but not really. They do not really occur in a clean version of themselves. It's very, very difficult sometimes to determine if we see a court trial or a quarrel on TV, especially with political speeches or like political debates. It's like it's the genre of it is very, very difficult, to tell what you are watching at the moment. Is it like a full-on quarrel now, or is it not yet? You may never know, really. Moreover, the type of the debate may also be manipulated. That's what I tried to say. So, for example, you start off with a rational debate with someone that, like, this would be the rational thing to think, and this would be the right way of doing something, and then they blow you up really much, and you're really, really angry, and then it turns into a quarrel. That very often happens, and you start using personal argumentations like, oh, what a stupid idiot you are to say that or something, and that's already not a rational debate, that's a quarrel, because you're trying to push the anger of yours onto the other person too, right? So this kind of argumentation, giving an argument, it's very, very, very important. And once again, let me highlight it in this slide as well. It says that to give an argument is not to quarrel. That's a type of an argument, okay? But when you say that, like, we had an argument, that's not bad. It's like you were reasoning with each other, and it might have been rational as well, okay? So please don't use argument and quarrel as a synonym or on the same page, because it's not, okay? That's very important to understand, that to give an argument is like, it means to offer a set of reasons or evidence in order to support any of your conclusions. So it's very important. Now, finally, ladies and gents, we are reaching fallacies. This is the fun part, and in the next two courses, today and then another two courses, we will be dealing with fallacies. Okay, the rational debate we have mentioned. The rational debate is the one which is going to be the best. Okay, so the rational debate is where we are starting off from, because in a quarrel, you can't really, it's just a simple matter of fallacies. That's really stupid. And the rational debate itself, you cannot analyze like, oh, go to hell, or you go to hell. That there is not much to analyze about it. But about rational debates, what went wrong and into what directions, that's an important matter. And so fallacies are going to be something to pay attention to, because the rational debate can be broken. And in my experience, it will be broken by a bunch of fallacies, which will kind of cause the whole rationality of it to go away and to move on. Fallacies, what does it mean? Fallacies, the term, are misleading arguments, practically. Many of them look so good, and many of them look so right that we would believe they're rational, but they're not. And many of them are straight on, very much transparently stupid. It's just that it's really, really tempting sometimes to use them. And so for that reason, the fallacy will usually or often violate one of the rules of a good argumentation. And in order to understand the fallacies, we need to see what sort of rules there are. There are 10 rules of rational argumentation, or the rational debate. And you don't need to learn. We will just, I think for the final exam, it's going to be very much enough for me if you learn the fallacies. You don't need to necessarily know which rule it's going to be breaking. But I've put down the rules for you as well. The freedom rule, burden of proof rule, standpoint one, relevance one, unexpressed premise rule. Of course, we will go one by one. I just want to show you the names. Starting point rule, argument scheme rule, validity rule, closure rule, and usage rule. These are the 10 rules of argumentation. I'm not going to read out loud all the like definitions to them because we don't need them now, all 10 of them. Today, I think we will be happy if we can get on with one or two rules and their fallacies, and then we will move on step by step so that we can get to the end in a normal pace and in a comfortable pace. Let's see the freedom rule. So practically, you've got the rational debate. In any case, it would be good if we could be arguing rationally. We don't. For that reason, the debate itself, the rational debate, has got 10 different rules, and they listed, like the definitions as well, they listed a bunch of fallacies that will break these rules, because oftentimes we are breaking these rules as well, okay? The freedom rule will mean that parties must not prevent each other from advancing standpoints or from casting doubt on standpoints. This freedom rule is going to be broken by a bunch of fallacies. Let's not go into the other rule yet. Let's just see the fallacy. So the freedom rule, parties have to kind of allow each other so that the other person can also like introduce their standpoints, and they shouldn't be casting doubt on each other before the standpoint was actually introduced. That's the rule. You don't need to remember the rules for the final exam, once again said. But the fallacies, you need to. The freedom rule, ladies and gents, is going to be broken by 3 fallacies. These normally have got Latin names because they come from Greek rhetoric and they analyzed them and detected them. Some of them have got a Latin name, some of them are more modern ones, modern detections, so they won't have a Latin name, but I want to show you a bunch of fallacies that actually break the freedom rule, the first rule. Ad hominem, ad misericordiam, and ad baculum. These are going to be the ones. Oh, I was pushing on a very heavy Latin, Hungarian, and all sorts of accent on it, but you understand these are Latin terms. Let's see these ones first, and then we will get back to the burden of proof rule. So the freedom rule is going to be broken by ad hominem. It's a very typical fallacy that we tend to use, and I very much would like you, if you use or choose a political debate, you will detect a lot of them. I would like you to remember all the fallacies. These are going to be very much part of the final exam. Ad hominem, you can see in Latin that it contains the word homo hominis, which is going to be human. It's like against the human, against the person. That's what it means practically. So ad hominem fallacy practically means that you are attacking the opponent, the other person, instead of the other person's argumentation. Okay, so you're not saying somebody introduces any kind of an idea. For example, this little bird says that I believe that human cloning is wrong. And the other bird says that, like, of course you would say that, you're an idiot. So the bird, I know it's a very trivial and stupid example, but it might show you very well that the bird doesn't say that, oh, human cloning is good because it will have this and that positive effect. No, it doesn't attack the other bird's, the other person's reasoning. It straight away, like practically it offends the other person, or it attacks the other person itself. You're an idiot. Of course you would say that. Okay, and this way it is already a fallacy, right? Aristotle says that this is an argument which will be not against the argument but against the questioner, and for that reason it's a personal attack. It's very much familiar within politics, especially in the use of negative campaign tactics in elections as well. Only stupid idiots would ever say something like this. It's also when you actually start going, like, you know, these kind of personal attacks I remember a lot within the Trump and Clinton debate. Hillary Clinton was always all about Donald Trump not being a politician but being a businessman, and like he introduced a claim, and then she was saying that, like, oh, of course you would say that because you've got absolute no political experience whatsoever, as opposed to me who has been blah, blah, blah. This is a personal attack to the incompetency of the other person. And then Donald Trump would attack back. For example, Hillary Clinton introduced a claim, and then he was like, of course you would say that because, of course someone like you would say that who has deleted 1,000 emails from her email account. Right, so it's like that was not connected to the topic, and he attacked her on her personal kind of personal issue, and not against the claim that was introduced. Okay, so that's practically ad hominem. I'm hoping that it's very much understandable. Appealing to pity is the next one, ladies and gents. It's called ad misericordiam. This is going to be if you ever went to or if you've ever learned Latin, or if you are religious, there is a statement in very many prayers that like miserere nobis, which means like have mercy on us. And this is like the appealing to mercy, appealing to pity. That's where it comes from. And the emotional appeals are very common in reasoning as well. We often introduce our feelings into the debates as well. However, when you are only appealing to pity in your argumentation, this is going to be, when it is substituted for good reasons, that's going to be fallacious. Oftentimes, my students come up to me and they will say that like, oh, please let us not have an exam now because we are all so super tired and the whole semester was super long. Appealing to a bunch of pity, and like for that reason I might be going soft and doing this and that. It doesn't often work with me because I know the fallacies. But yes, this one is, for example, here are the examples. I know I've flunked every exam, but if I don't pass this course, I will have to retake it in the summer school. You will have to let me pass, please. It is, of course, fallacious, okay? So it's very much fallacious. It's often happening, children do it, or teenagers do it with their parents, like, oh, mom, let me go to, or let me have this beautiful jumper because it's just so wonderful, and I really want to go and be trendy because without that I'm going to be the one hanging out from the whole class and stuff like that. It's a lot of whining practically. It's like a lot of appealing to the emotions of the parent that like you will be the only loser not having that pink jumper and then it's going to be very bad for you. Okay, very typical one. And then ad baculum is going to be the third one, which is going to be an argumentative fallacy, appealing to fear. Now, it is fallacious to be, or it's not legitimate practically, to reach your conclusions through making the other person fear you or your argumentation or what you're saying. The ad baculum is literally an argument that suggests beating persuasion into the audience practically. So it's like appealing to fear is appealing to threat, is appealing to ad baculum, it's appealing to the emotions of the people. If you don't take my position, there will be negative consequences. If you go out walk out through that door, you will never be able to come back. That's an ad baculum as well. Maybe you mean it, then it's not a fallacy, but if you are just threatening the other person, then it is going to be very typically a fallacy as well. The media is often kind of appealing to fear as well. Buy this product now or it will run out of stock and you will never, ever, ever be able to put your hand on it anymore because it's so important now that you buy it. And in some web pages, there is like a clock which is ticking backwards. It's like there is a countdown that like, if you don't book this hotel room now, it's just going to be, it's running out of stock, it's going away, the possibility is ended. Very typical. I've mentioned to you as well that the two political kind of parties within Hungary, which is sides, the conservative one, is often appealing to fear with its migrant campaign. So, like, if we open our borders, then a bunch of undetected or undetectable numbers and types of people will enter the country, and we will never be able to get rid of them. And then the other one, the kind of liberal kind of idea, will be appealing to a lot of fears. They keep on showing a bunch of unfortunate ladies with crying babies and stuff like that. These are all very typical, in images as well, these are all very typical political kind of things as well, appealing to pity or appealing to fear, the fear of the people, very typical one as well. Okay, shifting the burden of proof fallacy. Now, we do have the burden of proof rule, and it can be broken. This is the second rule. It can be broken by a fallacy called shifting the burden of proof. Very important fallacy as well. Now, this one says, and we often do this, and in political debates, if you choose one of them, but in films as well, or in any kind of, or any substance that or any kind of media story that you tend to use, this is also going to be a very typical one to detect. If a person introduces, that's the burden of proof rule, if a person introduces an argument he or she is obliged, it's obligatory for them to defend that position, okay? And you cannot shift that burden on the other person, that I introduce something and I don't want to prove it, so I push it on you so that you disprove it, okay? I'm not sure if you understand it, but these slides don't help. Okay, let's see, this one helps. I think Krista is irresponsible and totally crazy. Somebody asks, like, what makes you think that? And they say, why? Isn't it obvious? How wouldn't she? See that? That I introduce an argument that Krista is an idiot. You ask me why, and I say, like, why don't you think so? You know, and now I expect you to be counter-arguing me, even though this is not possible. If I say something, then I have to prove it. So saying this one, that pushing the responsibility on you, it's not good. It's fallacious. It shouldn't happen. Okay, and that is very important, that if you introduce your own argument, you need to defend your own argument. You are obliged. It's compulsory. And pushing it on the other person to disprove is not a nice thing to do, and it's fallacious as well. So what have we had so far? Ad hominem, attacking the person. Ad misericordiam, which is like appealing to pity. Ad baculum, appealing to fear. And last but not least, shifting the burden of proof. That's when you introduce an idea and you expect the other party to counter-argue you. That's not good. Not possible. Ad verecundiam, probably because it's getting super long. Ad verecundiam is probably going to be the last one, but give me a moment to figure it out. This is going to be appealing to authority. Okay? Appealing to authority is a strategy in argumentation where you are kind of like draw on somebody of eminence using that person's word as a backing for your claim. So very often we say that Einstein also told it, a British scientist said that. Of course, that's that meme was coming along based on this fallacy practically, that you're trying to prove yourself with someone very high eminence and it's not correct. You say that my mum told that this and that, your mum can be of eminence as well, or my professor said that, blah, blah, blah. Just because he or she said that, it doesn't mean that it's right, you know? Or I'm going to buy this mascara for my eyes because Kate Moss was in the... Kate Moss is so 2005, but Kate Moss was in the photo, and that's why it must be good because she wouldn't ever give her name to any worse or any bad kind of brands. Not true whatsoever. She can be giving her name to anyone, you know? So it's practically sort of a fallacy or an argumentative mistake where the people draw on somebody or someone of eminence in order to prove their claim. This is also not right. Okay. Tomorrow is going to rain, I'm sure, because my mum told me. Yeah, your mum is not a meteorologist. It might happen, it might not. Of course, crazy example. And I think, let's just stop it right here, ladies and gents, because I think that it's going to be enough for the first time. Okay, so let's just finish it off here. The video is already 43 minutes and we've learned a lot this time. We will leave out 2 weeks, but now you already know what sort of a political or media or sports speech. Some people actually chose speeches from films. For example, if you've seen The Braveheart, Mel Gibson as a Scottish gent, he's giving a speech in the end of it. Some people, and that's very much fallacious as well, it appeals to a lot of emotion, so you could just choose these kind of things as well. Some of my students chose pop songs. There was like a Katy Perry song as well. I Kissed a Girl, and one of my ex groups, they were using that one and they analyzed that one. Some people used Key and Peele kind of videos as well. That was highly inappropriate, full of F words, but it was still very funny. Some of my ex groups were choosing, Hillary Clinton, endless fallacies, Donald Trump, endless fallacies, of course, any politician will be. You can also choose whom else, what else. Or there are these, I have a dream, kind of like big political speeches that you can think of. Anything practically that you can think of. Or Rocky, that was also something that I remember. Sylvester Stallone and his big speech. So anything that you fancy, you can choose it. And you will have to detect as many fallacies as possible. Now we have introduced the first 5, but there will be some more, at least 10 more yet to come in the next 2 courses. But please, in the autumn breaks as well, start to think about what you want to analyze, how you want to analyze it, and then in the end, we will be kind of experts in analyzing what sort of mistakes and argumentative tactics people use in the media in order to make you believe something and vote for something and support some cases. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's move into Teams. We are going to be further practicing these, and I'm very happy to have been with you, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.